So a quote from Buddha Shakyamuni on metta. It's just a very, very short few words, but I find it so striking. It's extraordinary. Okay, very short. So of metta. It burns and shines and blazes forth. That's all that is, but I just find that a wow statement. And when I hear that, like I say, it just really resonates right through my body. So it speaks of the intensity of metta. It's not just metta is not just sort of like, hey, I'm happy all the time. The metta's got far more in it, far more depth than that. So yeah, for me, it starts with metta. Discovering a way to make sense of the confusion of many different emotions, thoughts, and needs, all bundled together in the shape of me. And typically experiencing the unsatisfactoriness of the many failed attempts in trying to gain love, attention, and acceptance. The metta, and actually the mindfulness too, better sit that in, were the beginning of an ongoing journey of greater and greater discovery. Discovery of self and other, and the way beyond this confused suffering. So, marveling at the brilliance of metta, the 5 stages of metta is such an outstanding way of seeing life. So much was gained from that level of clarity alone. Wishing for others' happiness with no personal strings attached was pretty cool, is pretty cool, and eventually it becomes insightful. Developing some emotional independence brought with it the opportunity to notice where I held back and to be able to explore the resistance, that holding back, to see what views were there, sort of that creating that confusion, or sometimes just seeing the reluctance of not wanting to go to a painful place. So becoming familiar with that. And so just to see, more of what would spark me into a reactive world of emotions in the drive of wanting life on my terms. So I would call that craving. So more on the emotions. So guilt was a big player in my life, an old emotion of letting people down. And I think most probably the biggest one was leaving home. That sort of feeling of, oh my gosh, I'm letting my family down. I just shouldn't be leaving and going out into the world. And yet that desire to go out to the world and discover and explore was obviously overrode the other. So from exploring that guilt, it was quite liberating to see and understand that it's not my guilt. It's not my guilt. I don't need to own it. I don't need to own that guilt. It was simply an old reactive emotion rising and falling from what sort of like begins with an unpleasant feeling much deeper down into the body. That would spring into life in certain situations, usually triggered by what someone would say or do, or even sometimes just thinking about something, the guilt would come. Metta was supporting me in moving forward from that fixed, sort of rigid self-interest by changing some responses and conditions, by noticing more and more with curiosity and interest. And in a way, I'm glad the guilt was there so that I could see it, discover it, and transform it. And as that sort of rigid, fixed sort of stuff of me starts to dissolve, that really means that there's more for others, and that there's more merging with others through metta. And sometimes I find it's quite helpful to just reflect back on, for instance, for myself, how much I've changed. And most certainly that one of the guilt, the grip of the guilt has loosened significantly. Amazing metta. It's something that we can choose to develop and cultivate within ourselves. So it's an embodied experience. So just looking at ethics, making progress with the metta meditation, and also in personal life, just looking at the ethical choices began to take center stage. A big step forward in beginning to take more responsibility for how I was choosing to live my life, and that perhaps some radical change was needed. Of course, that just doesn't happen overnight, yet I felt great joy in deciding to live a more ethical existence. It's the metta writ large. Seeing firsthand how my choices and actions affect myself and others. Making an effort and putting these ethical responses into practice is paramount, and yet not so easy to do. And we need each other in friendship to be supportive as we embark on this extraordinary journey of transformation. Seeing beyond the selfishness of unskillful actions, metta and compassion actually are ethical responses. You can see I run down on time here. Just looking at grounded, embodied experience. So it's really important to keep our feet on the ground, to stay grounded, connected to the earth and our bodies. The heart connection in the body speaks true to me, and it's my go-to place, a place I love to be. It's a place of stillness, non-judgment. And sometimes, as we just heard in that poem from Amitashraddha, I like to come in through the back door of the heart. When life in front of me is just getting too crazy, too chaotic, too stormy, I sometimes think, oh, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to come around, duck around the back and come in through the door of the heart. It's I find the heart, it's a welcoming place, and it's like coming home. It's like the sun shedding its radiant light evenly on all, dissolving boundaries of separateness. The heart can really carry a lot. In fact, the heart is boundless. So that just quickly sort of took me back to, what I was talking about earlier around the guilt of leaving home. Well, I thought, that's what it was like a little bit for Shakyamuni. I mean, that's a far more important journey. But, Siddhartha Gautama, when he was leaving home, he just went through so much angst. Should I go? Should I stay? Should I go? What am I going to do? And he eventually does go, And so, yeah, I thought, oh my gosh, I sort of get that, And for me, when I come back into that heart space, that, sort of no boundaries, radiant place, for me, that is like that sort of return journey, coming back home, the guilt of leaving home is sort of like leaving, the three root poisons of greed, hatred, and delusion behind, and stepping into that boundless type of love, that coming back home. Oh, welcome home, here we are. So, yeah, so that sort of thing cleared the way for Karana and Mudita. They just sort of naturally came into being, a deepening of faith in practice of meditation, an intention to dwell in Brahma Viharas more and more. Have I still got a little bit more time, or should I close it? A bit longer?
You've had your 10 minutes, but just wind up with a
okay, all right. Cool. So yeah, look, just a few things that I like to do. Finding beauty and simplicity in nature and the elements. The need to stay honest with my practice and not pretending is of great value. It burns and shines and blazes full. Thank you.